talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Wednesday night means it's Geordies here, Geordies there, and no need for Viagra on this show. We've all got a semi on, and it's at the end of January, two-legged affair. The opponent to be announced, of course, tonight in the League Cup draw. So we look forward to that. Hopefully,
come on, Forest.
Hopefully the winner of Nottingham Forest and Wolves, of course. But what a contrast in results. I've spent enough time in the last few days dwelling on the disappointment at Hillsborough, Mitch. So let's just enthuse about last night's performance and Newcastle getting into the semi-finals now for the first time since 1976.
You've used the word contrast, and it's a night and day from the FA Cup result to that performance. It was from the first minute. It was an outstanding performance. We could have been 2 up after 5 minutes. Credit to their keeper for making 2 or 3 superb saves. And on another day it could have been a hatful. Yeah, Leicester can use the excuse they've got a heck of an injury list and etc. But you still got to put away whoever's in front of you. And I think we did it in convincing style. The atmosphere inside the ground looked amazing. The atmosphere over here was amazing. And you couldn't get such a different performance to the weekend. Delighted for Dan Burn. I thought Bruno had another superb game, but you could add many others to that list. It's amazing, though, and it probably comes back to that what we've been discussing since Saturday about squad depth. That we've got maybe 14, 15 at that level, and then beyond that it does dip off. But we now have an interesting time going into this two-legged semi where we've got a weekend off in between, whereas potentially if we don't get the winner of the Forest Wolves tie, I think Man U have got 2 games against Barcelona and an FA Cup tie sandwiched around those games, and I think Man City you've got something similar, but I forget who it is they're playing, and so you cannot say anything other than we've really got an excellent chance, no matter who we draw, to progress. And I think the lads deserve it. They worked hard for it. They deserve it.
Stu, first half, I've got to be honest, I had my nails bitten down to the quick because having watched the game at the weekend and the Leeds game as well, Newcastle really just, with the exception of the Leicester game after Christmas, haven't really had their shooting boots on. And, when Longstaff ploughed that one into the Leeds' end and, we just didn't seem to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. Of course, going in at 0-0 at half time, means Leicester still had an opportunity to get something out of the game. And you're just thinking, is it not going to be our night? It was that Stockholm syndrome that Mitch has mentioned on this programme so many times. But Newcastle did the business in the second half, didn't they? With a wonderful goal by Dan Burn and an equally great goal by Joe Linton.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say it. Good evening from the semi-finals. Not to be said.
And Champions League.
No, but all the hoo-ha regarding Saturday's gone now. And if it was planned, it was justified and vindicated last night. And every single player who came on, even the substitutes who didn't get much of a run out, but when they came on, they all knew the role, they all gave the all. And it was a hugely, hugely impressive team performance. And you're right, though, when you get to half time, it's nils each. We dominated the half, and you start thinking this. And this is us. We have to change our mindset. We're so used to it happening to us, but this is a different Newcastle now. And the mentality or the mental strength that the team showed in the second half just to keep going. And I'm sure that would have been the message at half time. Keep doing what you're doing. You will get it and just build the confidence up. And for Dan Burn to score it as well with his right foot. He slotted in with his right foot, and then the pass from Miggy for the second goal was sumptuous. The one to play Joe Linton, and it was just a brilliant game to watch. And I put a tweet out yesterday saying it's days like that I'm really envious. You know, the build up to a big game at St. James's and just wishing you were there, and that makes you homesick more than most. But to watch it on the TV, was sitting there, had the scarves on the sofa and everything, and you know, you still feel part of it. The TV was blasting. I had to apologise to the neighbour in the morning for all the cheering I was doing, but it was amazing to watch, and the way everybody played. But I thought there was two or three people that were capable of being man of the match. But I honestly think that was Joe Willock's best game for us last night. He was everywhere, and it was brilliant the way him and Joe Linton kept swapping and interchanging from the left wing to the centre, and both of them kept tearing up that left wing when they had the opportunity. So it was obviously something they'd been working on. And you know, if anyone's saying that Joe Willock needs to be replaced, needs to watch that game again from last night. It was fantastic. We're in the semi-finals, and yeah, of course we want to avoid Manchester City, but to win it, we're going to have to play them at some stage anyway. I would expect. Sorry. So, but yes, we'll want Wolves or Forest. I'm sure we do.
Yeah, we definitely do. George, what a result, and just another great performance in front of a packed St James's Park.
Yeah. Before I say anything about games, I just want to thank everybody in the NUFC matters for their good wishes, and say how touched I've been and how important it's been. I'm sitting here now on my own, and thank you very much is all I'd say. And it's all going well at the moment. Right, the match last night was fantastic. Back in the good old cup days, and with a team that never looked like losing, and I agree with Neil and Stu. I mean, we could have been 3 up in 10 minutes like we were at Leicester the other week. I think the only difference for me with last night and the goals that didn't happen at Sheffield was that there was a feeling that they would just come. That was how confident you were about how they were playing and the way they were playing, and there was nothing Leicester could do. The irony is Leicester's most dangerous player to us was our ex-player, in my view. He was the only one that looked like he might score. But I mean, it was just delightful. Add to that a superb performance of the second half by the whole team, and for Dan Burn to get a goal. I mean, that was really something. I mean, what you all got to remember is I'm talking about this not mostly by commentary, because I couldn't see it. I mean, with my eyes the way they are, I couldn't see much of it. I can just see things darting about the screen. But I was, it still was exciting and a great thrill to see them come off like that. The other thing is I've come clean on here before about this. 18 months, 2 years ago, you lads know I wouldn't give Joe Linton lickings of a dog. I kept saying there's not even a footballer in there. Well, hands up, George, because last night was one of the best midfield displays I've seen for a very, very long time for Newcastle United. He just never missed a ball, never missed a pass, did his running, he tracked back, all the things he wasn't doing. He was doing them all last night at the same time. It was just unbelievable. And I agree with Stu as well. Joe Willock wasn't far behind him, but I think Joe Linton was my man of the match and was superb throughout the night. Midge's pass, again, Stu's spot on. There's days gone by when you know what Midge would have done with that? He would have swiped it into the back end of the Gallagher. It wouldn't have been a pass. It would have been a whacking great shot in the hope for glory. Well, he's now got a thinking head on. I don't know how they've done that, but that pass was superb. And it just was a tap in for Joe Linton at the end. So, yeah, fantastic. That's a sort of cup matches that I've been brought up on, to be honest. However, I'm not going to let them get away with Saturday, because I don't want our manager to think he can do that when he likes. What he did on Saturday was verging on criminal. Now, on Three Amigos, you were all talking about where he stands in the great managers and all the rest of it. Well, after Saturday, he went down with Gordon Lee for me. That's how bad I thought it was. It was awful. 8 changes. I mean, Steve, I read what I managed with my spyglass to see what you wrote about it. Why didn't he put the team out, get a couple of goals, and then start to change them and rest them? And but to actually do it like that from the start, he was on a hiding to nothing, and so were the kids. Winning's a habit in football, and so is losing, I'm afraid. And I thought, well, the bubbles burst. We're going to have to watch this. But think about who was on the field. He put on the field. He got young Anderson now has got the Sheffield Wednesday 3-1 around his neck, and Isaac has got that. Well, everybody in that match has now got something to bear, which they shouldn't have had to really, because we still could have won it. When he put Bruno on, they didn't know what to do with him, and we scored very quickly after Bruno come on, and were unlucky and some poor skill didn't get with a draw. So I I'm not letting them get away with that. That was a huge mistake in my view by our manager, but they recovered last night, and the Sky News interviews afterwards in which he was involved in. Super. He got up a little bit above Gordon Lee after last night, and the piece in the dressing room where he got, well, I don't know if he got Dan Burn up or the players got Dan Burn up to do Jacob Murphy's dance. Well, that's gold dust for supporters to see that in your home dressing room, and that just tells you everything about the atmosphere in that football club. Also tells you why we've got to be careful who we buy in January, in my opinion. But that was fantastic. So there you are. There's a rumble from the old man on the show. But yeah, fantastic cup night for Newcastle United fans. It was absolutely great.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you, as everybody knows on this channel. I was foaming after that FA Cup performance. Yeah. Genuinely was, and I've got to be honest. Going into last night's game, I was probably really negative. Because that's what's ingrained in us after the last 14 years of Mike Ashley ownership. I just felt that the wheels were going to come off. The whole ASM rumours, and that's all. There really did seem to be after all of that. Rumours circulating before the game. It just created this horrendous atmosphere, and as I say, I was just really negative before I went to that game. So let's hope we don't see any more of that. Newcastle. Going to put out the best teams for both semi-final legs, and continue to do the best they can in the league. But yes, we are above the curve, we are overperforming, but at the same time, you live for the moment. Newcastle are third in the Premier League.
I'm sorry, Steve. Can I just come back on one other thing while you're talking? You and I have just finished the Harvey era cup ties on his historical thing that I do for you. Or anybody wants a lesson management, go and look at those cup runs and see how many times Joe Harvey put a weekend team out. Yep. Even when we're playing non-league teams, it was the first team that went out, not the reserves. And he managed to do not too bad with 3 cups. And that really Saturday really did disappoint me. Sorry, Steve, didn't interrupt.
No, you're right, George, and I think ultimately now we've probably found a reason why he played all them friendlies. Yeah. just to give the other players a chance to have a game.
That's right.
Never really thought of that. Okay, Steve, your take on last night's performance and qualification for the semi-finals.
10 out of 10 for everybody. I mean, you're talking about man of the match. I mean, every player on that pitch yesterday gave his all. Absolutely brilliant to watch. Great atmosphere, as you say. Absolutely delighted with the result. Semi-final. I think there's at least 3 of us on the screen that were at the semi-final in 76. And we can remember the atmosphere that night. Absolutely tremendous. We're going to have more of that. Somebody mentioned there about fixtures. You often suddenly get this situation where fixtures creep up, and you get into a cup run, and then you tend to play the same team, within a matter of a few days of each other. And I noticed that the week after the cup final, we'll play Man City away. So I'm not saying anything else other than that. We'll just leave that one for another day, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. But no, tremendous performance. I mean, what it did show mind was that Dan Burn can't dance. I'll get that one in now. before anyone else says anything. He needs to take some samba lessons from Bruno. I think maybe Bruno will get him out there and the samba club. Nobby's here at the moment as well. So maybe Nobby could take him out for some dancing lessons as well, and we can get all the South Americans together and show Dan really how to dance properly. Probably take Jacob Murphy along with him as well. But no, it was great. I mean, the atmosphere was superb. The performances were great. It was just a superb evening of pure football. And you talk about Willock going down the left wing. He just seemed to be able to cruise past people yesterday. Joe Linton, the interchange. They mentioned a little bit about the tactics. The way that they've now got it. Playing in little triangles and squares and in fives, such like that shows you the level of detail that's going in on the training pitch and the level of detail that the players are taking in and responding to. So all in all, an absolutely brilliant. And unlike George, I'm not going to mention Saturday.
My brother went in 7 o'clock last night to just to sample the atmosphere and to watch the lads do their warm up. And he said, that the warm up and the stuff that they're doing there, the two goals last night directly came from stuff that they're doing prior to the game. He said, the moves and the intricate passing and the shooting and stuff like that. He says it was, there was, you could see that taken into the game. I found it strange about ESM last night as well. I mean, I thought he was going to come on at half time. But he seemed to be warming up separately. And when I mentioned it to my brother, because he came on, the lads had been warming up for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then ESM appeared and started running up and down towards the byline, backwards and forwards, applauding, waving to the fans. So I thought, well, he must be coming on, and then he got involved, and of course didn't come on right at the death. So I found it a little bit strange, but apparently he came out late again, like for the prior to the kickoff to do the warm up. So I'm not sure whether he's been treated slightly differently, whether there's something lingering on him or whatever. But when he came on, he put a wonderful wicked ball in, and like I've said in the last couple of nights, let's just hope we'll get ASM fit, firing on all cylinders, and concentrated on playing for Newcastle. And again, he could be like a new signing in the second half of the season, a bit like Isaac. But okay, Al Walid, I'm fully expecting you now to stand up and to do the Dan Burn dance. Are you ready?
I am terrible I love to dance, but I'm terrible dancer.
Here we go.
But I will give it a go.
I knew you would.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's got a lovely little Saudi edge to it as well. Like it was a little slower. Which I think was mesmerizing. Al Walid. I think I'm very impressed with that, mate. But what about the game? Did you enjoy that last night, or were you nervous as well?
Sorry.
Were you nervous last night? Did you enjoy the game?
No, actually, not nervous at all. I'm proud of the team. Excited to go to Wembley. Even if it didn't happen, it's okay. I'm nervous actually about the transfer window. I'm sure we're going into that in a few minutes. I really want to at least have two signing. I don't like to sign at the end of the window and waiting for the card of the player, and he's ready. He needs time to fit in the team. We would like to use this useful time for fitting the signing into the team earlier, as Liverpool do with the Dutch player.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to hear Dan Ashworth talking before the game on, I recorded the program and watched it when I got back in. And I mean, I certainly think he was bringing our expectations down a little with regards to this window. But yeah, we will talk about that. Steve, just your comments on the game.
Yeah, well, after the first half, I thought I've seen this game before where a goalie sort of stops us, and it's ironic that last week, with a lot of talk, I think you talked about Ben Jacobs about the possibility of Dubravka going to Leicester because they weren't very happy with Danny Ward. But in the first half, he had a stormer, and I thought I've seen this before where a goalie one-handedly stops us winning matches. But obviously, in the second half, it turned around, and I think one of the things I've noticed as well, I think you're starting to see Dan Burn attacking a lot more in recent times. Where I sit, in the second half, he's overlapping in front of me, and I've noticed that happening more. And I think you mentioned Plan 5 or something, didn't you, when he was interviewed on Sky after the match with and you sort of see maybe we've been getting it pretty good on the right hand side, interchanging between Bruno and that Amaron and
Trippier.
But I think now they're starting to get some sort of understanding between Joe Linton and Willock and Dan Burn interchanging, and I think we saw that in the goal. The way that he got into the box and a great finish. That was a quality finish that I would have liked him to be in that position on Saturday where Chris Wood was. He would have finished a bit more coolly than he did. But a great thing, and great to see the semi-final. I don't know about you lads. I would like to see the first leg away, but preferably, I was one of the ones involved in 1976, as Steve mentioned, and we lost the first leg then. But I like to hope we'll get a draw at least away, and then finish them up at St James's in about. I think it's only about 3 weeks' time, isn't it? The next round.
Yeah, both ties before the end of January. So by the 30th of January, we will know whether we are in a cup final.
Yeah. The other thing about Saturday, briefly, is I think Eddie Howe was in between a rock and a hard place, because if he played the full strength team then and got any injuries, which was always a possibility, we would have been in the mess last night. So in some ways, it was very difficult. But I think 8 changes was too much, really, and I think we learned a lot of lessons then. If at the cost of going out with the FA Cup.
Yeah, we certainly did. Let's start with you, Steve, on this one. Just the transfer window, it's open. I'm not sure whether you'll have seen Dan Ashworth's interview. You may have caught up with
just at the start of the match before.
Yeah.
Shea Given. Yeah, I think it was good. I think he was just demonstrating that what we probably already knew, that there's a focus on one, if the right player comes along, we'll be in for him, and also the thought of developing the youth in, like we've seen already with Garan Kual, and no doubt there's going to be lots more. So it's what we expected, but he spoke confidently again, and he came over in the way that we see that coming over with the club and all the spokesmen. We've seen Darren Eales, we've seen him, we've seen Eddie Howe, all coming out with not saying too much, but saying a lot about what we want to hear, that they're up for the future. And I think he's giving nothing away who we might get this month. I still think there'll be some significant signing. I still think we've got to get something in midfield to be a backup to Bruno should we lose Bruno, because I think, as we saw on Saturday, Anderson's not the answer to come in there and for us to maintain success, but he's the next obvious choice to come in while Shelby's injured into that position. So I think we've got to get somebody into that midfield. I was trying to watch a little bit last night of I got his name, Leicester guy that we're maybe interested in, but Tielemans, yeah. I wasn't over impressed with him. He got around a bit, but I couldn't see him being the man that we want to fit into there.
Yeah, Madison for me clearly the better player amongst between the two. But it's interesting. Okay, Al Walid, transfer window. You mentioned it just briefly there. I mean, what would you like to see? Who would you like to see come in? And did you hear, Dan Ashworth's interview before the game?
I think now we're much more settled, or I'm sure much more settled than before, or than previous transfer window. So the targets should be already there, and maybe there is half agreement. So I don't know what to take so much long. It should be done, I think, in a weeks, and we just get over with. Some club, I don't know why we are waiting until the last minute. I hope this is not what's going to happen. Definitely we need, as we speak, lads, we need a center midfielder, maybe extra player in the wings, or maybe he can play. We see. We don't want to mention. We need to be. Maybe I don't know the word. It's maybe now Newcastle would have courtesy for some players. Some players need to be thanked and go. We need really to sign. we shouldn't be shy. We should really, we need signing, because we have great opportunity this season. We can go to Wembley, we can go to Champions League next season. So this is our chance, and we don't want to waste it and risk it until the last seconds. And this is what I don't want to happen. We wish that we have 2 players. If we really, it should be we should already choose the players, and of course the management know when they're doing agreement with the players and agent. I'm sure they reach, as I said, have agreement. So we should push, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think a lot of people are, worried in case a couple of injuries come along and, our season, becomes a bit of a damp squib after so much promise. But Steve, we're seeing lots of names linked as always. We're covering it on this channel, day in, day out. But what do you think we need and into the team? And what did you make of Dan Ashworth last night?
I thought, starting with Dan Ashworth, I thought it was a really, really tempered and intelligent interview. Some great responses. I thought he held it together really, really well. I thought that he showed his professionalism. He didn't go out and give an indication that, we're going to splash the cash, but at the same time, he didn't say we weren't. He was very, very tempered. I think what I got from it was, you know what? If there's somebody available, then we'll go for them. If they're not available, it's not a problem. We'll move on. So all in all, not too bad at all. Just get me a cup of coffee here. And spoiled. Yeah, thanks. And in terms of what we need, I think a central midfielder, more of a number 6, someone who can play a little bit of holding role, but is also creative. I mentioned it the other night. My dream midfielder for that position would be someone like James Ward-Prowse. I think a player like him would give us some alternatives. Probably not alternatives, but he would immediately take all the corners and free kicks. So Trippier would get a bit of a rest there. And if I was really, really pushing it, I think if we are going to compete against the Manchester Cities and the Liverpools of this world, I think we need a top-class striker. A proper centre forward, a target man, someone who's got something about him. And for me, looking at around, obviously not in the Premier League, but looking overseas, someone like Vlahovic at Juve. Juve in financial constraints, and I think that if things turn out bad for them, I can see him moving on. And I think that we should be one of those clubs that should be looking at a striker like that. Big, strong, bustling, takes no prisoners, scores goals. In the same vein as Nunes, and although he's getting an awful lot of stick for what he's missing, I think he's a class actor who will only get better and is scoring goals. And obviously Haaland's a totally different kettle of fish. But you look at Chelsea; they're struggling to get a striker, and they're still going for the deep lying, so number 9, the false 9s, and they cannot fill the gap. I think Newcastle need a proper striker, and it's not because I'm criticising who we've already got. I just think that we need to strengthen. We need the alternatives. We need to have a stronger squad, and that's, with the players we've got, some will move on. But no, that's where I'll be looking at the moment.
But not Ross Stewart, I'm guessing, Steve.
No.
George?
Agree with Steve. I mean, I think that you can tell we're sitting together at the match when we go.
Exactly.
James Ward-Prowse would be somebody I'd look at, and Maddison, if he's available, would more than sort out the midfield for me, and it would release Bruno a little bit to do more dangerous things. And then after that, again, agree totally with Steve. We do need a top class striker. I mean, I love Chris Wood. I don't mind admitting that, but his time's gone now, in my view. But we do need somebody who's able to do all that Wilson does and more. and frighten people to death in the penalty area. And we haven't got anybody. Even Wilson doesn't do that most of the time. We haven't got anybody like that at the moment, and it would be nice to see somebody. So yes, that's where I would be. I also missed mentioning that goal number 2 last night was ultimately from a throw-in. Now, when's the last time we ever scored a goal having taken a throw-in? It's usually the other team battering us after a throw-in. No, James Ward-Prowse or Madison would I think would fit the bill, and as long as they would fit in the dressing room, that's the other big plus, because that was drummed home to me last night when I seen that footage from the dressing room, that they can't just be anybody. They need to fit in, and of course, alongside the other striker, you've got to remember we've got a one that we haven't really used very much yet, who's coming back to fitness. So, and he frightened Liverpool when he got his chance. So somebody alongside him would be very, very much my wish.
Super Mac made a good point last night. I stuck it up on the YouTube channel at the Dog and Parrot last night, George, where he said that Isak doesn't like playing with his back to goal. And obviously, we saw last night he was favouring the right-hand side quite a bit. And, he needs to play alongside somebody.
Yes.
He needs to play alongside a Callum Wilson. It was a good point, I think, that Super Mac made last night.
It was indeed, yeah.
And he would know, you know what I mean? So he said if
just a little bit, yes.
He said he can't see the day that Isak plays up front on his own. He said otherwise we're going to be in the same situation as we are with Chris Wood. Albeit a slightly better Chris Wood, a 60 million pound plus Chris Wood, but it's something. It's a bit of a conundrum that they've got to get that right. But that's what they get paid for. Steve, yeah, just following on from what everyone else is talking about, me at the transfer window.
Oh, great. Well, I'm still off the ilk that we should be rattling this so-called big six and putting bids in for their players just to noise them up a bit and just to distract them. You think that I've mentioned Rashford before. I've mentioned Rashford at Man United, Tierney at Arsenal, put a bid in for Sterling at Chelsea. And just to get them unsettled a bit. Son or Kane at Tottenham, and what's that lad called up front for Man City? Not Haaland, the other one. Is it Alvarez? Yeah. Bid in for him. And then to top it all off with PIF funding, get a bid in for Mo Salah as well, just to get them all wrecked up a bit. But I'm not even joking. I think we should. It's a bit of the shithousery that Mitch mentions, and it complements what Al Walid said as well. From a position of strength, this is when we should be building. But if we could have a dream signing, then of course to me it would be Bellingham in midfield. I think he's got a fantastic future in front of him. Dan Ashwell's interview I've mentioned on the group, didn't I, straight away when I was watching it? It was brilliant interview. But he didn't say anything that we didn't know. And if anything, he mirrored or parroted what Darren Eales had said when we were in Riyadh. But it shows that they're all on the same page, and it was said with confidence and it was said with conviction. And basically the message was, look, we'll always play fair. We'll be nice about it, but don't mess with us. Don't pay me back and tell us it's raining sort of thing when it comes to these fees, because we've got a valuation of a player, and if you go too high, you won't get our money. And either that will go to somewhere else, or we just won't buy it until we get the right person that we need. And it's the Saudi mentality, and I'm sure Al Walid will agree with that. We will do it our way. Don't tell us how to do it, and this is the way we're going to do it. These are the rules. We'll play by them. But I still think that they've already targeted Madison, and I'd love them to put a bid in for him. But when he's injured, it's a bit of a risk as well. And if he's injured throughout the rest of this month, then there's no point in putting a bid in for him, because they're not going to sell him anyway. So then that just gives us a chance to revisit in the summer and see what happens. But moving forward, there was a lot of talk, wasn't it, until last night, that Dan Burn was no left back and he shouldn't be playing there. We should get an orthodox left back, and then he goes and does that. But you can't judge any one player in one game. You've got to look at the full season. And Dan Burn has excelled in the role that he's been given. Will he be there in 2 or 3 years' time? I think by his own admittance, he won't be a regular in 2 or 3 years' time. But as a supporter of Newcastle, he'd be saying, okay, I want to be part of it, but if you've got someone better than me, we're going to win stuff, then You know, you can take that. I suppose that's a bit nicer medicine for him to swallow. The one thing I said also to our group on Saturday watching the Sheffield Wednesday game, no Bruno, no fluidity. And that's my big concern. If you take him out of that team, he brings so much more out of the long staffs and the people that are around him. And you see he's always there to feed Almiron, and him and Trippier are always there supporting him. And obviously Joelton likes playing with him, Longstaff, Willock, they're all comfortable giving the ball, he's comfortable taking it. So if you take that out of the team, in the squad at the minute, there is nobody to replace him, but we can't get someone off the same standard as Bruno to sit on the bench. That's something we're going to have to accept as well. And with Shelby being injured, I think midfield is a position we're going to have to bolster because, again, there's a bit of Latino hot-headedness there as well. You know, there's always a chance that you could get yourself sent off if he's not injured. So we'll have to make sure we've got a decent cover and just add numbers to that to makes the competition higher, because I think that the team came out last night to prove a point. And when we did the professionals on Sunday, I said I wanted everyone to walk out as tall as Dan Burn, but walk back in as tall as Dan Burn, and they did to a man. Every single player played for their place, and not one of them deserves to get dropped. But your complacency is something that can set in. If they've got someone like really good coming in, then they're going to up the game even more, and we as fans will benefit from it.
Stu, you and Mitch tend to get a few, rumours with the circles that you mix in. Scotty says, do you think Madison is injured? He says, I think it's a smoke screen.
Yes.
Rumours will start to ramp up in the next week about him again. Yes, you both do.
No, he's definitely injured. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Mitch, your take on this transfer window and the interview with Dan last night.
The message from a number of individuals within our setup, manager, sporting director, CEO, is January's a long month. They're preaching patience, but as ever, if the right player becomes available at the right price and they can do the deal, it'll happen. And if you want an example of how not to do transfer business, look at what's happened at Chelsea this last week, where he stepped down as sporting director. I think he was pulled down. I think somebody in Chelsea's gone, had on, this isn't Football Manager, mate. Yeah, you're screwing our FFP for the next however long. And if you want examples of that, the last two deals they've just done, the player that signed for 70 million, but they've got him on a 7-year contract. 7-year contract? That's to amortize it. That's to make it stretch out for FFP. What if he's Henry Saviot? How long did it take us to get rid of him? 5-year contract? So if this guy doesn't perform for them and the fans turn on him, they're stuck with a £70 million duck egg that can't make any money back off and is going to sit on his wages for the length of his 7-year contract. The loan for João Felix, a loan where they're paying all of his €280,000 a month wages, but they haven't negotiated a week. There you go. And they haven't negotiated a buy-in clause. There's no buyout clause in there. It's just a pure loan for 1 year, and Atletico have extended his contract with them. That's not a good deal for Chelsea. That's not a good deal for their FFP, even though when they took the club over, they front-loaded the deal to get rid of debt, allegedly, to make things look nice and rosy from an FFP point of view, so they could do what they've just done. What Bowley's done as sporting director is just run a coach and horses through that for them. And I'm glad we're not doing the same thing. We're being more patient, more thoughtful. And I'll stick with what I've said for a long time. In this window, if the right player becomes available at the right price, the deal will be done, and that'll be whether it's on the last hours before the window closes or whether it's tomorrow. And nothing's going to change that approach. And we're not going to be held to ransom. Everybody can look at PIF and say, oh, well, you've got this back and this amount of money, so we're going to take the mick out of you. No, they're not, because they won't let that. They won't let that. And so we need to just sit and see there's two ways they can go here. They've also preached about 1 in, 1 out. And what that would do would be allow them to strengthen the squad depth. And we'll see clearly that's something that really does need addressed, probably sooner than later. So I think any deals that are going to be done aren't necessarily going to be megastar deals. Excuse me. I think there might be young players with potential development who can replace other players in the squad. And let's not underestimate what Eddie Howe could do with something like that. Or they're going to be right player at the right place suddenly comes available like Isaac. And that's the way it's going to go. And like I say, we've got until the end of the month to worry about it. And I'm glad we're not jumping in.
Oh, he's off again. Bless you. Yeah, we did. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, Tom, tonight. I've got to ask you, Mitch. I'll put a poll in the chat there. I've had 67 votes already. What do you want most this season? Top 4 place or a Carabao Cup? Cup for you?
There's plenty of time for top 4. If I were going to be greedy, both is doable now, in my opinion. I think both is doable, particularly if we do strengthen in this window. But to actually have winners' ribbons on a trophy and 2 fingers up to the rest of the world because the sleeping giants finally awoken, I'd have that all day long.
Stu, same for you?
Yeah, I think we will do both. But if I had to choose one, I would, without a shadow of a doubt, I would pick the cup. I was even looking at the quickest way to get to London today from Bahrain. Was I going British Airways to Heathrow? Was I going to Dubai and then up to Newcastle and travel down with you lot for the game and everything? Honestly, I've been looking at so much different travels, but the cup every day of the week and twice on a Sunday.
Yeah, same for me. I've got to be honest. Want to win the cup. Not seen it in my lifetime, and would like to see it now, please. George.
Well, I am a greedy little duck. I'd like to see both, but if I was nailed down, I would want to see some ribbons on a trophy. Interestingly, when I sort my eyes out, the next thing you and I will be doing on the historical side will be the 74 issue. We lost in 74, and yet over 500,000 people managed to crowd the streets between Central Station and St James's Park to welcome home the losers. Imagine what they'd do if they were welcoming home the winners like they did in the 50s. I mean, it would just be unbelievable. And please God, I'd like to see that at least once before I leave this mortal coil, if not a few more times. So, yeah, if I'm pinned down, it's got to be some ribbons on a trophy.
Yeah, David Cooks, the Sea Sky, said last night, Saudi money's bought us our first semi-final for a long time. Suppose we've got to expect this, David. We have, mate. That hasn't gone away, sadly. Al-Walid, which would you like? The Carabao Cup or a Champions League place?
Of course, Carabao Cup and an extra. No need to be top 4, but I want to beat more of Big 6 teams.
Yeah. Okay, you want to beat the likes of Liverpool and Manchester. You want to see those games being turned into wins. Yeah, I can understand that. Michael in the chat says top 4 for me would accelerate the project, open up financial fair play with more income, which would be huge. Cups will come in later years. Chelsea have done us a favour, says Scotty. They've taken the spotlight as anyone can take the mick out of them. Todd of Botthole is quickly running that club into the ground. As predicted, it has to be said by the 3 amigos. And Blue Rhythm Boy says, we'll feel better if we can win via beating one of the big boys, which is just what Al-Walid has said. And yeah, Tim says he's now had a look when the final is, 22nd of February. So yeah, lots of people getting excited.
26.
Yeah, 26th. Steve Hasty, lots of people getting excited. And yeah, which would you rather have? Would you rather have the Carabao Cup or would you rather have the Cup? Yeah.
No, but no, that's nothing else to say, Steve. It's cup all day.
Yeah, and Steve Wilkinson.
Well, I think we can do both easily because there's just looking at the fixtures. There's 5 games before the final, not including the semi-finals. So there's 5 league games, all winnable, and therefore all not likely to lose is more of the thing. So that by the time we've won the cup, we'll still be in the touch with the top, and there'll be still 15 games left. So once we've got the cup in our hands, which I look forward to seeing, and wouldn't it be great to have a repeat of 76 and beat Man City down there with revenge for what was a bit of a dodgy overhead kick by Dennis Stewart? So it'd be nice to go down there and see them off on the big stage. But I think we can do both. But I think I've changed my mind. I think when we asked this question, probably before the round before last, I probably was favouring being Champions League, but now we're in this position, definitely cup, and let's get it won. And say it's not far away now. It's we're 6 weeks away from the final.
Yeah, 86 people have voted tonight in the chat. 76% want to see to win the Carabao Cup. 24% top four place if they had to pick one. Yeah, John has already booked the hotel rooms for us for going to Wembley. Thank you for that, John. Let's hope we get the right draw tonight and we can get through that semi. I do want to touch on something Tom Lynch mentioned earlier on, and that was this. He says the one thing I'd say is the crowd was still a little off last night. He says great at kick-off, but then there was still a very subdued atmosphere, not responding to those attempting to chant and sing until we scored. Tom, I'm afraid I predicted this prior to the game, and while I have to commend War Flags' efforts, fantastic to see, everyone making the effort, bringing the scarves, etc. There was a lot of people like me last night who were in that ground who ultimately I think just had the nerves, and it's acceptable because we haven't won a trophy since 1969, and all we know really is quarterfinals, semi-finals, the odd final where we get beat, and there's this horrible atmosphere around the ground, which I'm not sure whether you would pick it up as much sitting at home or sitting out in a bar, but it's unfortunate, and I don't think it's something that we can just say that's Newcastle. It's stadiums, modern day stadiums as well. Crowds are not the same anymore, and it doesn't help either, of course, when you're playing a team like Leicester who were offered 3,000 tickets and only took 1,000. So there was no atmosphere.
It's something though. I've also seen certain other areas of our fan base discussing recently, calling out so-called Johnny Come Latelys, calling out so-called tourism and fans, and calling out kids and families being there. But as we get bigger and as we grow, it's this expansion of the fan base is something we're going to have to embrace, and I think we're going to have to understand it a little better. And it's very, very difficult. It really is, because it would frustrate the life out of me if I wanted to sing myself hoarse, and nobody else around us really wanted to. That would frustrate me, and because I like to get lost in the whole passion of the moment. But it's equally, we've got to understand that where are our new fans coming from? We've got statistically one of the oldest fan bases in the Premier League. We've got to encourage new fans, new support to get the games as how they can. And because of the way the ticketing works, cup games are sometimes the only way certain people can get a chance to get to the ground and blood youngsters and get youngsters used to it. And I think that's something we need to find a way to encourage and brace and get people used to it, but also get the newcomers comfortable with what do we say, industrial language on occasion. Certainly I've had plenty of tuts and head shakes in my time sitting in various seats in St James's Park. But what comes out of my mouth in the middle of a game on occasion?
Well, there's a couple of times you and I have had to change seats because the bloody stewards were looking for you.
That's true. Yes. Thanks for that, Dad. Cheers. And so, it's a really difficult balance, but it's something I think we've got to start to learn to embrace and try and help encourage for things to grow, because that's where the new fans come from, be that young fans, be that people in the region for study with university or in the region for work, or people coming from outside of the region, or people coming from Saudi and the Middle East because they want to experience the atmosphere of St James's Park and the game day experience. It's a real difficult balance, and I don't pretend to have the answers. And it's also why I've said on a few occasions recently, I genuinely wish I understood how expat support works better when I was chair of the trust, because I think I would have done more to solidify those links to all the foreign fan groups that Steve had on a database that we collected, and the many affiliate members that we created for the trust at the time. I think I would have encouraged them more and worked harder to get them embraced and get them into the ground and get them into the culture of St James's Park. it's a real difficult balance though. And like I say, I don't pretend to have the answer to it. And I also understand how frustrating it is because I've been frustrated like that myself.
Steve, one of the enjoyable things for me going to the cup matches in 1892 when we're having a coffee on or such before the matches is when there's lots of new youngsters in 1892 that haven't been there before. The excitement inside is absolutely palatable. It's wonderful, and I would hate to think out of well, it's almost snobbery that would come to an end because they are the future, and Neil hits the nail on the head as well with students. I remember when I was admissions tutor in our department when Keegan was manager. Now I was hoping, praying for 500 applicants at the start of the year when, you know, to try and get me quoted so the university wouldn't be jumping on my neck. When Keegan was there, suddenly it shot up to 1,500 applicants at the beginning of the year. It was fantastic. And that hasn't died because later when I went to Singapore and visited Keppels and all the big shipyards, there was kids popping their heads out of the holes in ships. What they wanted to know was, how's United doing? They didn't want to know how the university or I was doing. They wanted to know how United. So, yeah, all of that, what Neil's just said, I'd second completely. And we've got to find a way of harnessing it. But that excitement in 1892, and Steve's usually with us, if youngsters are there, and Steve usually eggs them on by saying, what's the score of the night? And they love it. Absolutely love it. I know somebody else used that phrase sometime before, a bit more famous than I did. But yeah, loved it, and long may it continue.
Yeah, that, I mean, John Smith pointing back to the old days, recreate the conductors of the orchestra in the corner of the scoreboard that stood on the concrete barriers in the Gallagher. There's got to be a way of doing this. And John, that's the point I was trying to make earlier about new stadia. It doesn't allow that anymore. You're stuck in a seat. You're sitting next to people you don't know. Cup games, of course, it's like the lottery. Somebody mentioned in the chat there that it's like walking into, you know, people walking into your local, strangers walking into your local stew. You know, and you know, like it is a bit like that cup games, but it's great because it's given other people an opportunity to come and see Newcastle and you know, build the fan base. But at the same time, it does detract the atmosphere. But have I got something now, do you think, with a stadium? Because that's what I mean. You go to places like, you know, other grounds, and you know, it's no different to other grounds. You know, Anfield, the Emirates, Manchester City, you know, Stamford Bridge. None of these have got good atmospheres, and 9 times out of 10, it's the away fans you can hear singing.
Yeah, well, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? To me, it smacks a bit of NIMBYism, isn't it? They're not in my backyard scenario, because it's like we need the club to grow, we need the fan base to grow, and if every season ticket holder wants to keep their seats, they get the first choice to buy them. So, you know what I mean? There is, even within the season ticket holders, the tourists, but I understand there'll be people who can't go midweek games, etc., etc. But we were in danger, as Mitch touched on there. We're a fan base that statistically was the oldest in the league, wasn't it? On average. And we were in danger of losing a full generation under Ashley. Now, I think sometimes you've got to look back and think, well, remember your first game when you were taken, how did you feel? And we're all on this panel because we got bitten by the bug, and you got made to feel part of something, you got made to feel welcome. You don't want people saying, well, you're not coming here. You know, even when me and Mitch go back, if we're not sitting in the seats that we used to, we'll have to ask the steward which seat sits, where do we sit? Does that mean we don't support the club now? You know, so these people should be made to feel welcome, but it's the ones... I get it, the other side of the argument. People say, oh, you shouldn't be singing, keep the noise down and stuff like that. Go to the theatre. You know, football is where in the old-fashioned terms, it was a release for the working class where they could vent their spleen, have a bit of camaraderie and enjoy everyone getting together and pushing and pulling for the same team. But if we can't endorse or embrace new fans, we're not going to grow, which means we won't win the trophies. We can't just rely on PIF to keep funding us because they haven't bought us. And I will repeat for the 50th time, for charitable reasons, they've bought us to make money. So we do need new fans. And even if they're lucky enough to get into the ground once a season, fantastic. because that means they'll buy shirts. That means they'll continue to put money into the club. But if they feel that they're going to get rejected, you know, the Geordie hospitality is famed around the world. We shouldn't be changing that because someone else has managed to get a ticket to go to the game. It should be an education, just like what we have to do overseas. We've got to educate people on what it's like to support Newcastle, what it means to support Newcastle. And for too long, we've been laughed at. Oh, you support Newcastle? Oh, sorry about that. No one's laughing now. And the best thing was last night, well, someone just said on Sky Sports, Mario Melchot said, no one's laughing now. I flicked over to beIN Sports because Gorilla Gloves wasn't on it. And Jason McIntyre was talking. And he says, I'd love us to sign this Bruno Guimaraes, us being Liverpool, by the way. And I just started laughing, thinking, you've got absolutely no chance. You know, we are now the envy of many people, and we've got them rattled. And as long as the people in charge and the team and the management team keep their heads, we're only going to get bigger and better, but the fan base has to as well. So think on, if you've got someone sitting next to you who's never been in the game before, encourage them, because you don't want people going away saying, I'll never go back there because I didn't enjoy my experience. Every single Newcastle supporter should enjoy their experience in St. James, whether it's the first time or the 100th time or the 1000th time. Everyone should be welcome.
Al Walid, when you've been to Newcastle, what did you think of the atmosphere? How did it compare to other games that you've been to?
Well, it was most really amazing feeling. Between all matches I've been attend, friends in Snapchat, they always send me with the live videos of the games, and I post it on Twitter and Snapchat. I'm looking for that word. When I like today, I saw a scene with the chants of lady races. It's like what you call when you have shaking feeling. I don't know what it's called in English.
Like an adrenaline rush, like nervous. Nervous excitement.
So the butterflies, isn't it? Yeah.
Excitement.
I don't know the word in Arabic. It's قشعريرة, but in English I don't know what is it.
Yeah. I felt like Lionel Blair there, but that's you know what I mean, Steve. Go on, Steve. Your take on the atmosphere. Has Tom got a point?
To an extent, he has, but there's been a lot said already. But you know, if the entertainment on the pitch is as it has been and will continue to be, I'm not worried about what's happening on the terraces. It's what's happening on the pitch. The fact that we get this winning mentality on the pitch, and then we're enthralled by the game as we're watching it. And it's not necessarily all about just standing and singing and that type of thing. It's absorbing the game. And I think with the youngsters, the midweek games as well, it's slightly different atmosphere. People have been to work. They're kind of getting into the town earlier. The next game will be interesting. The next home game is Fulham, but it's a 2 o'clock on a Sunday. But then I think you'll see a totally different atmosphere. 2 5:30s on a Saturday. West Ham, then Liverpool. Then you'll see Bear Pit, and you'll see people who have been on the drink since lunchtime and earlier, and that becomes a totally different one. And when we're standing on strawberry plates before the game with the food bank, you can tell what sort of an atmosphere it's going to be. There's a nervous excitement last night, and I think that came over perhaps in the crowd. But for me, I thought the atmosphere inside was great. I thought the missed opportunities and the reaction of the crowd and everybody getting up and the referee's decision making, and every time we went on the tack, that it was standing up and up and down continuously. I just enjoyed the whole atmosphere yesterday, so I wouldn't get too hung up on it. I'm sure there'll be people shouting saying that the away fans should be a little bit further down. That's going to open up another can of worms. It's been discussed on numerous occasions. The FSA were all over it a couple of seasons ago and will continue to be, because they feel as though that and certain members of our fan base think that if the away fans were nearer, then we would hear it and that would G us up. well, they're up in the gods singing their hearts out, and it's not Gene we're up. I don't think it would cheer them up if we're standing next to them. To be perfectly honest. So just enjoy the moment, guys. Enjoy the moment.
Yeah, goosebumps. Al-Walid has just sent us a message. Goosebumps. That's what he meant. Yeah, very good. What is it in Saudi?
I just Google it. Thanks. It's قشعريرة.
That's a Syria. Apologies if that was a swear word. Any Saudi viewers? Steve. Steve
No, قشعريرة. No.
No, the way I said it, Al-Walid. Not the way I said it. Steve.
Yeah, I think obviously I sit on halfway line on the east stand, and it's clear the bulk of the noise comes from the Gallagher corner. But it's sometimes, I don't know whether it doesn't translate, that they're out of sync sometimes, and I don't know whether it's the distance or whether how you're hearing it. But you don't seem to hear the singing and the leases that is going on, but not necessarily in sync with what's going on in the Gallagher. I think it's part of the sort of thing that Darren Eales is looking at when he gets the fans together, is to have a look and see whether there's a desire to have an expanded singing corner. That I think they did this in the past once, so whether they sort of suggested having a singing area and see if people wanted to swap seats. Maybe it needs to be a bigger area than the corner in the Gallagher end, maybe more stretching across towards the middle or something like that. So it's got more significant area. But I'm not too worried, like Steve said, about the atmosphere. I think once we get 2 goals going up as it was last night, you get 2 goals, then you get all the tell me ma starts coming, and everybody gets excited about that. And and I do think once you see the pressure getting built on, I think everybody gets behind, and it's a great atmosphere. So I'm not too worried about it. But if there is a wish to sing, you do hear the odd quiet voice, and there's some young lads sitting around. But because everybody's mixed up, you see these sort of timid voices, not really wanting to get singing because of who they're sitting next to. But so, which is why I'm thinking maybe you do need a bigger singing area. But I'm not too worried about it. I think it's got to be a better atmosphere than many places.
Yeah.
Hello, Steve. Sorry, Steve. There's some things never change, mind. You and I've shown you lots of photographs of the 10-minute flag in the Gallagher corner, and how
all the people going in. Yes.
As soon as that went down, people went home. And I thought when the new stadium came, we've got our new seats at the new stand, that all of that would be a thing of the past. But ask Steve Hasty, it's not. We can pick out the people who are going to go home 10 minutes from the end. Win, lose, or draw, they're on their way home. And
irrespective of the state of the game, George, isn't it? Irrespective of the state of the game.
State of the end, but they don't want to go home.
And
so some things don't change.
And it's 30 quid plus to get in to go home 10 minutes from the end. I've never understood that.
Yeah, bizarre. Time has beaten us. Thanks very much, lads, for your company. Thanks to everybody in the chat and the moderators. 470 people watching live tonight, which is a record for Geordies here, Geordies there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We never take that for granted, but thanks for spending an hour with us. Don't forget, there's plenty of other Toon podcasts out there to keep you company tonight. But we'll be back 6 o'clock tomorrow with Super Mac and Gibbo. Until then, good night. Take care, lads.
All the best. Cheers, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
A big thank you to all our sponsors, as always. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, and our website skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensaries, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to make an order, give them a call on 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to Blowhole Breweries, you can get a selection of beers, and the cans are in the design of the old Newcastle United entertainers strips. Blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Melly's Carpets and Beds, laying our reputation, one recommendation at a time. The best quality around at the cheapest prices. Melly's Beds and Carpets.co.uk. Email sales@mellysbedsandcarpets.co.uk or give Melly a call on 01670 632 216. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays in Morpeth, 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Some great deals coming up there. Get yourself onto the website to check them out. Thanks also to Media Arts, who do all of our videos and help us with the technological side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the subscribe button below. Hit the thumb up, which is the like button, which does us a big favour with the algorithm. And click share. Share it to Newcastle United Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or your own social media to help our community grow. And if you want to join the channel, hit the join button. And for as little as $1.99 a month, you can get some members-only videos and chances to win some fantastic prizes. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Don't forget as well that we do events through NUFC Matters. And this one is the next event coming up, Friday the 24th of February, an evening with Newcastle United legend Steve Howie. Friday the 24th of February, Tyneside Irish Centre, and tickets are available at £50 from newcastlelegends.com. If you also go onto Voucher and search for the event, you can pick up a bargain on there. Don't forget, we also support the food bank on this channel. www.nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the Matchday Bucket. You can make a virtual donation to the Matchday Bucket 365 days of the year to keep helping the food bank in Newcastle.